Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I'm very happy to see you again in our webinar series about audio product management. So my name is Wojciech Ozimek, and I'm a co-founder of Rokanan Group, which is a small boutique studio that helps product managers all around the world in various domains, but our core domain is actually audio and music tech products. And I'm, again, super happy because we have a great guest from San Francisco, right? From San Francisco, from the other side of the pond. Francois Quereuil. Hey, Francois.
Hey, Wojciech.
So I'm super happy because Francois will actually introduce himself and tell the story, a little bit about himself. But because before we start, actually, let me say a couple of words. So first of all, I wanted to ask the question whether you can see us and hear us properly. You can just post the comment in whatever platform you are watching, and maybe we could also mention where are you from, what country or what continent are you from, so we can say hello and sort of check the contact. Okay. So I will see there is a certain delay. So well, so I wanted also to say that the subject of today's webinar is actually how to manage industry leading products. So Francois was vice president of audio product management in Avid, company that everybody should know in the audio industry, but I think also outside the audio industry, it's pretty famous company. So he has a vast experience in managing and actually being an executive in the audio company. So we'll have a chat actually. What is it like, to have a career in product management in audio? Just it's from the sort of first hand, and have a informal conversation. But there will be space for questions. For maybe 20, 15 minutes at the end. We'll just leave space for comments, so you can actually post them throughout the webinar, and if anything comes to your mind, just leave it. We want to have a conversation, so we'll just not read them, but they're just all posted. We have a colleague behind the scene who'll just collecting them all together, and we'll just try to address them throughout the at the end of the webinar. If there is something we won't be able to to comment or discuss, they will simply run out of the time. I think we can pass them to Francois, and he'll see if we can make sure we we don't leave them unanswered if we can. If we have answers, of course, right? Yeah. So with this said, Francois, maybe we could just start by introducing yourself and say a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. So yes, I'm on the west coast of the United States, about 40 miles east of San Francisco. I've been here for a few years now. I actually started my career back at Avid in 1999. That was my first job out of college. And it's kind of an interesting story. I was making music in business school. A lot of friends. We started on 4-track tape machines, and then started recording music on computers, which was brand new at the time. I actually started using Cubase, Steinberg Cubase VST back in the day, but it was like a revelation. Like all of a sudden, you have a multi-track studio in your bedroom, and it really opened up a lot of possibilities. And I was very lucky because at that time, Digit Design, which was the audio division of Avid, was looking for a representative to do marketing in France and start the brand and start market adoption for Pro Tools. And I got the gig, which was the most incredible thing, marrying a business job and my passion for music making and recording. So I started working in France. I actually didn't stay in France very long. They asked me to move to the UK after not quite a year of doing marketing in Paris, and I moved to the UK. The Avid office at the time was at Pinewood Studios, the very famous studios where the James Bond films were being filmed, which was kind of cool sometimes to see some Bond cars drive past. And there I ran the marketing department for Europe for Digit Design for 5 years. In 2005, because I always wanted to move to California. I had been here when I was in school and I absolutely loved it. and I finally got an offer to move to California, work at digital design headquarters near San Francisco, and that was in 2005. So moved here, so that's nearly 20 years ago, to take on more of a product marketing role at DigiDesign at the time. And the idea there was to really be sort of in between marketing and product management, with a team of market experts that would help come up with the best strategy for the product lines, and sort of optimize the go-to-market activities. So I had, specialists for post-production, a specialist for home studio, a specialist for live sound. It was really fun. It was a really fun time. And then after 3 years doing that, I had an opportunity to work for a startup in the Bay Area, not necessarily in audio per se, but really serving all of media technology industries. So I took the opportunity. It was kind of a crazy ride for 10 years, of basically building a brand, immensely successful. The technology was about moving really big files on the internet really fast. So it became a quasi standard in Hollywood. Every Hollywood studio was using the tech.
Nice.
So that was super fun. Traveled the world. We got acquired by IBM in 2014. They left us alone for a little bit, and then it started becoming a little bit more corporate, and I want to say a little bit less fun, even though it was still like a really successful endeavor. And in 2018, I got a call back from Avid. Um, the head of products at the time was like, "Hey, we got this opening to run Pro Tools product management. Are you interested?" And my first response was no, because it scared me, because I had never done product management before, and I was like, I can't do it. Like, I haven't learned product management. I mean, I'm very familiar with the space and the technologies, but it feels like a big jump. And they were really cool. Like, they were like, look, what we want is somebody passionate, somebody that can manage a team, somebody that can have vision for the products. There's a lot of help and really seasoned product managers, and very quickly I went to the conclusion that I wanted to go back to audio, and that's where I feel the most at home.
Yeah.
And I took the gig, and it was definitely a steep learning curve, but amazing support from the organization, from the team. And eventually that role, which was focused on Pro Tools products at first, after I think it was after about 3 years, I got offered the vice president role, which was basically looking after everything audio for Avid, and that included Pro Tools software, of course, Sibelius notation software, all of the Pro Tools hardware from Mbox all the way to Pro Tools HDX, the consoles, and also all of the live sound systems. And an amazing run, amazing time, even though there was a pandemic in the middle. And I left Avid back in April this year, and I'm now basically independent. I've been working with a lot of different companies, helping them with their strategy, helping them with go-to-market. And my main focus right now is on the pro side of Sony Audio, where I'm helping them with their pretty amazing virtual mixing technology, which basically takes an Atmos studio in your headphones. So that's been a lot of fun too.
This is interesting, I mean, especially that I also got into immersive audio in the last couple of years. Actually, it's interesting, this is interesting. I mean, of course, like when you actually started in audio, I was, I think, still about to finish my, university. So it was, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is that actually I hear from a lot of people that and it was also to me, I was actually, I mean, so what I'm trying to say is that my path was actually a little bit different, because I've been doing product management as a profession for a long time, but music was something I did, independently in parallel. So I can say I grew like a super, okay, that's probably not too modest, but I mean, grew kind of an expert in the field. But at some point I say, oh Jesus, I'm just, fed up with doing products I don't love. And when you said this is a place where I feel at home, I say, yeah, it just spoke to me, because at a certain point I say, hey, I can, I was actually already also managing entire portfolio on executive product position, but say, hey, I don't want to do things I really don't enjoy, so And this is where I went to the to do audio product management. So that's a and but what also actually is interesting, you say that actually your start in the product management role. I mean, I recently also I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I think a lot about product management, or sort of how effective people can be, and what is actually the secret recipe for being an effective product manager. And actually, it's actually probably like a knowing the except for all these tools and techniques and blah blah blah, because obviously there is a lot of framework, and actually nowadays there is actually plenty of like coaches and mentors, but actually the most important factor is actually knowing the market, feeling the market, right? I mean, having some kind of passion toward to actually sort of drive change for the customers, right? I'm not sure if you would
Oh,
agree with.
I absolutely agree, and I am definitely not the most, the practitioner expert at product management. I was lucky enough to be a people manager of people who would, have that expertise and understanding of how to use the tools and drive teams of designers, etc.
Mhm.
Um, but I do find that every person that was ever successful in my group was fundamentally deeply connected to the industry, deeply connected to the product they manage, users themselves, and really open-minded and seeing the innovation in the market, the way people use things, because that's changed a lot over the past, the past 30 years, especially. At first it was like recording onto tape and using these big consoles, and essentially the DAWs are a digital version of that old mentality, of that whole workflow. And as we've been progressing over the past few decades, people tend to do things very differently and to express their creativity differently. So it's been always a reinvention, but in order to really be close to it, you have to be a user, you have to be passionate about it, and you have to kind of live and breathe it in many respects.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So can you tell a little bit, how you structure the product team? So when you, of course, as much as you can say, so what is, your sort of, let's say, you say you don't have so much, but who can, I mean, there is so probably few people like that have experience like yourself.
Mhm.
So so how you structure product teams? So what kind of roles, etc. Like functions you think
Yeah,
that are
so
important?
to answer your question, so product management organization can end up being relatively small compared to sort of the overall product development, you know, part of a company. Um, you end up wearing a lot of different hats, because in some companies, the product manager is essentially a business manager, which I kind of experienced at Avid. It's not just coming up with a roadmap, um, and making products and features happen. It's really about understanding the market, um, making a compelling business case, creating a strategy and a roadmap that really sort of serves the corporate objectives of a larger company, in this case in particular. It's helping all of the cross-functional teams do their work. Like the sales guys will call you, you'll need to help them, and they'll give you feedback too on the products from the customers, but you have to help them go to market. You have to help marketing. You have to train all of the customer service people. So there's a lot of hats you wear as a product manager. Now, and on my team we had basically different product lines. So I would have a product management lead for every big product line. So Pro Tools software was one of them, notation software was another, audio hardware was another. And so you always have sort of a product manager, business owner that manages sort of different aspects of making the product and making the product successful at the same time. And then there's also this role that is super important and potentially even more important sometimes than the product manager, is the product owner or product designer. There's definitely different ways different companies call this, but it's essentially the people that define the capabilities of a product, the human interaction with the product, and are able to articulate that into language that engineers can understand, whether they're software engineer or hardware engineer or even firmware engineers. And those guys are critical because they take this vision. They're the ones who have the vision for how someone's going to sit at a computer and do a particular thing. And then they basically work with teams of engineers who are going to make that a reality. And that is like hands-on, day-to-day. I'm sure, a lot of, if you guys are interested in this, you all know the concept of Scrum teams and how that works, and now every day something's going on in this conversation. It's extremely fluid of how development happens. So the product owners were really key in the group. For me, another function that was really important was to have sort of product management operations. You need to have really smart, really process-driven people that can help you be extremely organized. Now, obviously, on the engineering side, they have very specific tool they use and specific methodologies, and a lot of people use Jira, for example, for stories and developing. But on the product management side, you also need a lot of organization to make sure that you keep on track, and that you address all the different aspects of what you need to do. It's not just about development. It's going to be about supporting, reporting the financials. It's going to be about ensuring that all of your margin stack is fine. It's going to be about helping enable the sales force, whether they're internal or external. So the product management operation, sorry, was really key. So having a few people that help you with that is very important. And there's two others for me that I think should still fall under the product management umbrella. One of them is alliances and partnerships, because there are many things, especially when you're like a platform like Pro Tools. You can't do it all yourself. And there's like hundreds of really cool companies that are developing amazing innovation that you could work with. Like, let's bring this particular innovation to my platform. So you need to have vision, you need to be close to the market, and you need to be able to structure business deals and partnerships, which will involve a business component, and then it will also involve a development component as well. So
Okay.
that's a very important part of the organization. And then finally, for me, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a marketing person before I was a product management person. And because in companies like Avid, the product management team really has um, P&L responsibilities. So I was measured on revenue and profitability, and those were the metrics that ultimately I was responsible for. So it's really key for me that we have the right go-to-market apparatus in place. And because we're so close to the product, because we're so close to the users, we're in a unique position to really inform the sales teams, the marketing teams about how they should communicate about a product or making a product successful. So I've really wanted, and I eventually got it. It wasn't the case at first, but having product marketing in my organization helped us be super successful.
Thanks. It was like very interesting when you mentioned that actually the difference between product development and product management. I like that very much because many people actually confuse those two roles and think that product managers are more like we see this never-ending debate: product owner versus product manager. But I think and I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, I always have the same distinction, right? That the product management is more business function with financial responsibility, with actually this different hats that you wear, whereas you have actually different sort of, it's not different, but like a different, like a part of the organization when you have like a product development, right? I mean, software teams, hardware teams, external teams, right? So some kind of partnerships, etc. But I mean, very, very, very interesting. And how
Yeah,
about the design? Was there like a, I don't know, like some kind of UX or like a design team on as a part of the product organization?
so eventually we grew into that, and I think there was a lot of back and forth in sort of figuring that part out, because I do, the user experience, the customer experience is extremely important, especially in software now, and in the world where like, we ended up being the first ones to go to market with subscriptions, which was sort of you know, a something that was great for a lot of people, and some didn't like the idea. But when you're in a subscription business, the the whole customer experience is paramount. Like, it has to be easy. It has to be easy to buy. It has to be easy to get up and running. It has to be easy to cancel your subscription, to feel like you're not stuck in something. And you need a lot of support along the way, especially if you're a new user, to actually make sure that you're successfully using the product. So from the UX itself of the product, but also the website where you're buying things, but the product itself, the ease of use, the content that you will get that trains you to do certain things. All of these things are sort of a combination of really important things that drive success for your product. And to me, that means that it's very hard to have just one sort of area that's UX. And we tried it in different types of ways in different parts of the organization. Eventually, we did have some UX specific folks that were working and affiliated with the product management team. But again, when you're in a large company like Avid, audio is only a part of the business. There's a storage business, there is a video editing business, there's a media asset management business, there's a broadcast news technology business. And we have to, as a company, we have to figure out how can we leverage some resources across the board. So it ended up being more of a shared service to have user experience. But at the end of the day, I see the product owners and the product designers are being, especially in this world, super user experience savvy, and they're the ones really designing that. And but we did have, by the way, an amazing guy that was just doing all of the UI work for everything that we were doing, like a designer, not a user interaction person, but somebody that would take these concepts and make them a reality on screen. And that's something I really love. I'm sure as much as audio is about audio, it's about cool stuff that you're visualizing on screen as well. So
True.
we had a wonderful resource doing that for us, which was great.
Yeah, yep. You see, let me ask you why I ask this question, because I mentioned to you, right, that I just got disconnected with the industry for a while. So, I was when I was actually starting out, I was using Fast Tracker, to make my first music, and a bit of guitar. And then for a while, I was actually doing something. I mean, for a long time, I was doing something else. And when which was, different kind of products where UX was always super important. Then when I got back, and started, to use sort of Mastermind phase though, which is, by the way, is also Cubase, which was actually version 8 at the time, so already like filled with so many functionalities. And I remember watching an interview with Hans Zimmer, who was saying, "Oh Jesus, it's so great that I actually started with this though, like the early days, because it was only few functionalities, and I grew with the tool, and if I was actually to jump on the running train today, it would be like a super 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 difficult, so to me, sort of trying to catching up with the technology, right? Being a tech guy and still, making some music, usually rather playing, analog instruments, piano and guitar, bass guitar. It was kind of frustrating. And I said, Jesus, why actually everybody in audio industry doing everything like it was designed purposefully to be super complicated, right? Then on the other hand, I still understand, there is so much legacy code and all these tools are sort of like being developed for 20, 30 years. So it's not like you take a table, sometimes creating simple functionality or redesign can take months of even years, right? Because there is so much interdependency, right? And let's say technical debt that you have underneath, right? But still, I would say that, yeah, and especially that these are tools for engineers very often, right? So, done by engineers for engineers. But I just wonder, what do you think about, this coming trends, with AI, etc. People are trying, to be more and more impatient, and less people want to, get deeper in the technology, and how this UX can sort of, be like a game changer in the changing industry, right? People, I mean, probably go to this online DAOs, and like a simple tools. They don't want to simply, they don't have this patience anymore to spend years in the studio, like watching somebody from behind his back, right? And how to do stuff, right? When you do in the analog days yet, right?
Yeah, my thinking on that has evolved over the years, um, because, like many people, I've had to learn a lot of things and learn the hard way in many respects. Like from a music standpoint, I'm a classically trained pianist, so I went to the conservatory for 14 years to learn how to play piano, and then I taught myself guitar and other instruments and all of that. And that's it's a huge amount of hard work to do all this. And then I, taught myself the audio tools. And by the way, I'm nowhere near the level of proficiency of engineers out there who have really dedicated their time learning a craft and all the intricacies of all the different tools, etc. But also, I've seen over the years the things that have actually like truly blown my mind and made me more creative were really significant innovation steps. And the first one for me was when we started getting really good virtual instruments. Now it's you can get anything and it's almost commonplace. But back in like the very early 2000s, when the first DSP based synthesizer plugins came out for Pro Tools, this was like oh my god, I don't need to buy a synthesizer now. I just can have a keyboard controller and I can just literally control something in the DAW. And then all of this evolved with, the innovation of amazing companies, Arturia, UVI, Native Instruments. And now there's like a lot of these really cool companies making all of these different tools, whether they're synthesis based, modeling based, sample based. The access to these instruments has made the creative process amazing for me.
True.
And now there's a lot of tools. You talk about AI, but it started also with like, arpeggiators and MIDI plugins, and where all of a sudden people who don't have the technical proficiency can start taking something that's in their head or a creative intent and make it a reality. And at first I was like, man, that's not okay. Like they need to learn the hard way too. And then I was like, but that's the purpose of technology. The purpose of technology is to simplify, and in our case, the creative nature of humans. And if there are tools now that allow people who could have never recorded or composed a piece of music before to actually get something creative out of themselves, um, and help them communicate, express themselves, I think that's totally valid. Now, obviously, there are some things that I still have a hard time wrapping my head around. On the AI front, how does that really serve human creativity? But I think there's a lot of companies that are going beyond the simple idea of writing a prompt and getting a piece of music back. There's a lot of companies that are looking at ways where AI can take them in different creative spaces, give them ideas, like be their songwriting partner, being their producing partner, help them sound better. So I'm super excited about what's going on right now. I'm actually like really interested in AI, even though a lot of folks, like my age and sort of my position in the world of being creative and making music, are like, no, AI sucks. Like I don't want to have anything to do with that. I'm actually really getting to the point where I'm super interested, and I think it's going to be a positive thing in the end.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree, but what makes me hesitate actually, it's the ethical side, right? Which is we love music and we sort of train models with with, I don't want to obviously point finger in any specific company, but it's a like an ongoing subject. On the other hand, you can hear stories. I mean, I have to say this because I admire this very much, Lander, right? I mean, I think I think it's this like a either not trained on the music, real music, or I'm not sure if there is actually some payment for musicians, who actually, so, I think what I'm trying to say that I mostly admire those companies who have this sort of strong values, say they try to use ethically this new
100%.
technologies.
I absolutely agree with you. It has to be rooted in, an ethical mindset, and a mindset where artists can make money out of it. It's already hard enough to make a living as a songwriter or musician or a producer,
That's true. That's
considering the way music is distributed these days.
yeah.
Um, let's not make it harder. So when you have companies like, um, I give you an example. I was recently, I recently did some work with a company called Music.ai based out of Brazil.
Mhm.
Amazing stuff. Like they have amazing stem separation technology. They have amazing voice cloning technology. Everything they do benefits the artists or the people that have brought the data to help them create their models. And that's the key. Like, how's that going to evolve? Companies that really pay and license their training data. And then if artists, like, let's say you have an app that helps you sing in the same style as I don't know, Ariana Grande. Um, it's a bad example because she already makes a lot of money. But anyway, for sake of example, if you have something that helps you sound like her, and that's kind of what you want to do for
Mhm.
yourself, then she should get, and maybe her producers that created her vocal chains, and her writers that write some of her melodies, blah blah blah. Like, everybody should get a little piece of the action if you have a service or a tool that allows you to sound like that. And so I think the companies that are going to go in that direction are going to be very successful.
It's funny when you say that, about this, everybody should have this piece of it, it reminds me of Rick Beato, interview, I don't know with whom, or it was him actually. I mean, it was actually interview with somebody, I don't remember whom, saying about 80s, etc., when actually, like a rock music was just driving so much. And, he was explaining the model, that everybody actually had, is their own piece, right, of the cake. And actually, that's why it was so successful. So you actually, what you're saying, it can be actually new great era, some kind of renaissance of music where everybody gets their own piece of the cake. That's actually interesting,
And
what you're saying.
it
Very
might even
optimistic.
create like new monetization opportunities for artists who, you know, or producers or songwriters that could basically license their style to something. So
Yeah,
those
yeah.
those those areas of exploration are really interesting to me. And as long as long as there's a focus on not not screwing the artists, um, or any of the tradespeople and craftspeople in the industry,
Engineers, yes,
that
exactly.
all don't get screwed, basically, and that it can enhance human creativity. The horrible scenario is when it's just commoditized and it's AI music that's training on AI music, and it becomes the lowest common denominator, and we lose as as the human race. That's a big statement, but I don't think that's where that's going, because the ones that are going to win are the ones who are really going to enhance that and support artists.
Listen, I have to talk to you more often because, I have my own doubts and sort of fears related to this, so having such optimistic conversations help, But if I can jump, I mean, if I can make more small interjection, because you mentioned virtual instruments, and I just wanted to make a small. It's not like an ad because I'm not trying to sell anything, but the next guest on this webinar series will be actually Simon Cross, who is a CPO from Native Instruments. So you guys, if you want to sort of have a you know join these webinars, here you have the the link to where we actually advertise all those webinars. And you'll also see it in the comments, right, on the all portals. So come join us. He will talk about probably a lot about the virtual instruments, right, because Native Instruments is one of the companies that leading this mind-blowing sort of no, I don't say
Yeah.
a revolution because it's already like a
20
long time.
years now, I think they've been in business.
Yeah, but I mean, they still create like mind-blowing, stuff. And I have to say, I'm addicted. I actually use plenty of those or their virtual instruments, in my compositions as well. But I wanted to touch one, regarding AI, etc. You mentioned the, subscription business. this is like very interesting subject, because I mean, for many years, and I mean, I was one of this, typical, probably like a music sort of audio engineering person that has a hate subscriptions. Everybody who makes subscriptions should be, should go to hell, etc. Until recently, when I had the conversation preparing another episode of the series with the, I mean, I'm already making some kind of spoilers, but there will be a guy who is on the board of a company called Krotos, right? And they have Krotos Studios, so also like a post-production, audio post-production for movies and games, etc. And he mentioned something that he says, hey, actually subscription can be really good because, then we have like a recurring revenue, we can actually dedicate more time actually to constantly work on the product, right? Moreover, we have data, usage data, which allow us, sort of to understand customers better, and actually, help them, serve them in a better way, right? So I'm not sure, what are your thoughts on this one,
Oh, I'm an advocate of choice. I'm pro-choice, as they say, in many respects. I think the first thing for me with subscription actually hit me when I was working at the startup in between my 2 stints at Avid.
Mm-hmm.
And I, for me, spending money on music was not a priority at that time. Like I didn't have a lot of expendable income to really buy stuff, and buying a Pro Tools license at a time for $600 was it's a big deal.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they start advertising, oh, you can get Pro Tools for $30 a month, and I was like, oh my god, thank you so much. Like, yeah, that's perfect. Like $30 a month is something I can totally manage, have access to the tools that I need that I've been using before. So that was that immediate affordability of the access to something that used to be, by the way, like thousands of dollars. Like back in the day, was a very expensive system. So that's
Okay.
the number one. Number two, I think the guy from Krotos is absolutely right. When you get into a mode where you have recurring revenue, it creates opportunity and constraint, which is great, actually. So the opportunity is your revenue becomes a little bit more predictable. And so you're able to dedicate resources to have more ongoing sort of upgrades and innovation. But then also your subscribers are like driving that. Like they're not going to pay you every month if you don't bring new stuff at least every 3 months, new functionality, new content, new sounds, whatever it is.
And
So
just
kind of
respond to their needs, right? Simply responding to their needs, being responsive, more responsive, put pressure.
yeah, and I think it's like a virtuous cycle, where you have to deliver value to your subscribers so that they feel like they're getting their money's worth. It's not just about getting the right to use a product. Like it's also about getting the latest and greatest and the compatibility with a new Mac OS and a new plugin, or a new functionality that you've been waiting for. But also it enables you as a business to do that. So I think subscription is great. Now, there are many in this industry who have been on perpetual licenses and want to keep it going that way. They've built their business or the way they do things around that. And so to me, it was always important to continue having some amount of that and continue to take really good care of your early adopters and people who had bought your perpetual license and upgrades over the years. But eventually it ends up being another recurring revenue thing, because if they feel comfortable in that space, then they continue to give you money for upgrades. So I think in that respect, I personally like keeping those two things alive. You could make a good case for having a really affordable subscription and move everybody to subscription as well. It's really then it becomes more about the philosophy of the organization or the priorities of the organization. But as an individual, I like the idea of providing choice in that regard.
Excellent. I mean, thank you for that. I still wanted to sort of under how much this conversation changed my thinking, and how much actually that gave me this perspective that you shared, that this actually could be good for the users. And I mean, he also mentioned something, I mean, I don't know to spoil, he's actually another conversation only about user experience and like onboarding customers, sort of like this product-led growth, product marketing, but actually it gave me such a thing, I was like, okay, it's a it's a different, because I mean, I think musicians and generally people in the audio industry, they tend to think about their software like about their instruments. You actually want to have something, which is like a
Totally.
mine.
Hmm.
Yeah, but actually there is actually a slightly different thing, owning a guitar, which is actually like a ready, sort of like a complete product that you from time to time only repair, change strings, and blah blah blah, and something completely different, which is like a extremely complicated software or hardware product that requires like a firmware updates, compatibility, blah blah blah, and and actually you want to follow with the with some latest trends and in the and add new features, etc. So what I'm trying to say is that I actually want to sort of advocate that we have to rethink a little bit, the subscription is not such an evil, and actually it's first of all, it's not the same having owning and a music instrument and having a piece of software. Secondly, actually you can have multiple benefits out of actually having somebody who's like you say, you don't simply shrink your team and grow, etc. You have stable business, and you can actually be super dedicated on actually on serving your customers, which is actually our mission as product managers, right? We constantly
Yeah.
be
I mean, I mean, um, at the end of the day, first of all, there are very strong voices in the industry against subscription. They're just very loud people.
Mhm.
Like, the subscriptions are extremely popular. People
Mhm.
actually like them, and it's the affordability, it's the access. Um, especially in our world, like, you have these amazing subscriptions for plugin collection. So you got Slate Digital, you've got Plugin Alliance, you've
Discussed
got
audio,
what
I think.
Universal Audio is doing, and these collections are just mind-blowingly good and comprehensive. And for like $20 a month or $30 a month, like every other month, you get new plugins, you get new tools. Um, so I mean, the problem, I guess the problem becomes, you want all of them, and so it becomes if you're like me and you're a sucker for these things and you want to have all the nice instruments and plugins, but so that's a problem. Is like, you have to make a choice at some point, an economical choice for yourself as an individual. But I
Mhm.
do think they're wonderful, and that they're super successful.
Yep, yep, yep. Listen, I mean, I was thinking, oh, hey, how can we fill the entire hour? I wanted
It's,
actually to
it's
ask you
going
one more
fast,
question.
huh?
This is very fast. Yeah, actually, you share so much. You're such a great storyteller. So so time flies. But I mean, I wanted to ask you one more question because being in such a let's say exposed positions, meaning obviously strategy and like sort of driving the let's say your vision, like you mentioned, right? I mean, so what is your like approach? Or sort of how do you approach sort of building product strategy and sort of aligning all the people towards one goal? Do you have any, I don't know, specific tools or specific, I don't know, ways you do it, or how you'd like to recommend other, I don't know, founders or product managers or directors of product, what how to do that?
Well, I mean, I'll give you some of my perspective on that. Now, some of it, I mean, like anything, when you get into a position of leadership, it's typically because you've demonstrated a certain acumen, a certain, you have the experience, you have an understanding of a market space, and you should have a vision. Like, you should, as a leader, you should have, at least in your head, some desires or goals, or kind of places you want to take a product portfolio or a technology portfolio, which obviously is going to be the same for a founder of a new company. They're going to go, oh, I really want to do something like this, and that's what I want to build.
Hmm.
um, but I would say, for me, the number one thing, and the thing that's helped me be the most successful, I think I'd attribute it to just this one thing, is be amazingly close to your users. And share tables with them, go see them where they create, go to trade shows, go to conferences, take the phone call, no matter whether it's a mixing engineer like Manny American or Andrew Sheps, or some of these like amazing people, or if it's like a nobody and an up and comer that just wants to give you ideas or share their own struggles and issues. It's really about that. And one is a person, part of it is a personal thing. Like I want to be with these customers. I go travel. I've traveled quite a bit around in various markets around the world. I've made a lot of friends. Like at the end of the day, you have these really relaxed conversation about the creative process and understanding what their product, what their ambitions are, what they struggle with, what they love, and you start really internalizing things, and you start opening a door to people just texting you or giving you a phone call and going, "How about this? Like I had this idea." So it's like it's almost like crowdsourcing, but on a personal, targeted level. And that's been huge. And if you have an organization that supports you, like I did at Avid, where a lot of that can be somewhat formalized. So obviously they'll pay for you to travel and they'll pay for you to go to conferences and things like that. But we had this amazing group called the Avid Community Association. And it was basically an advisory board, an advisory group where we'd invite like some like luminaries in the world, but also some like more up and coming producers and musicians. And we'd have regular, online meetings or even in-person meetings where we'd discuss things and they'd bring ideas to us, or we'd bring idea to them. It's like, hey, we were thinking about doing this. What do you think? So that's been a really important sort of driving force to establishing strategy. And then obviously, when you're part of a larger organization that has, financial objectives and goals, and for a long time, Avid was a public company, so you had, investors and stock market to make those people happy, and have them subscribe to your vision and have them understand why your vision is actually going to help the company grow and provide value to shareholders. And then, at the end of last year, Avid was taken private and purchased by a private equity group. And then it's kind of a similar thing where instead of having a lot of shareholders and a board of directors, now you have a board of directors and one main owner, and you have to obviously listen to their objectives and the strategies they want to put in place, and spend a lot of time discussing things with them, so that in some cases they might be really attuned to your market space. In some cases they might not. So there's a lot of education and conversation and going back and forth to establish a strategy. And once that's vetted, then there's still a massive amount of process in justifying specific projects and securing investments for innovation, negotiating for things that are not going to make you any money for 3 years, but are really important for the future of the company.
I hear you.
So it's a very multifaceted process coming up with a product strategy. But I'd say something about where I was, which is when you deal with a product that's quite ubiquitous like Pro Tools, you have a very entrenched professional user base, and that's both a blessing and a curse, because you have to take care of these people. You have to take care of them. Like they're number one on your list. If there's a bug that makes their life impossible, you have to fix it. If there's a functionality they need, you have to do it. But you have to balance that with innovation, things that they might not be asking for, but will make their lives amazing in 3 years. And you have to balance that with the needs of, the thousands of people in their bedroom that are getting started.
True. So much true.
Yeah.
Been there, although not with the audio product, but I mean, been there, so I know what you mean. We're just closely to an end, so we'll just open up for the discussion and questions. I just wanted to highlight one thing, that we actually have a Facebook group for audio product managers and music product managers. Francois is also here in this group, so if you want to maybe, like reach him out and talk to him. But there is actually plenty of people from all around the world. The link to this group is actually in the comments, and all portals. So it would be lovely if you could guys join, because we share. There are actually funders as well, head of products, product managers, UX designers. But idea is actually how to to share best practices. How to do product and listen to people like Francois, right? So we can learn a little bit. So Francois, thank you so much. I mean, it's not like an end, so it's not thank you and bye bye. I just wanted to open the comment section, and maybe we can actually like display some of them. And wow, it's just going so much. Oh, some of them are actually links, but yeah, yes, maybe just go from the top. There are some comments. There's also some. Hey guys, so first of all, if you have any questions, this is the time. I'm going to first of all see what's in here, because there are some comments, not questions, but generally comments. So
I'll make a comment as you look at this, and for anybody listening who's interested, like this is for anybody who loves music and audio, this is like the best job in the world. And this is the ability to really work with a group of people and create features and tools that musicians are then going to play with every day. That's a special feeling.
all right, we have a question. For a platform provider like DigiDesign that provides both hardware and software, how do you keep your launch moments aligned? Okay, that's a good one. When hardware and software have such a different development processes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I think Avid, the Pro Tools platform in particular, as this amazing, and that's derived back from the DigiDesign days, where there is this synergy, this symbiotic relationship between the software and all of the hardware components. So you have like now it's the HDX platform, which is DSP based. Part of the mixing happens on the DSP, so you have low latency tracking. A lot of the processing power for that, for real time processing, is on the DSPs. But then there's also the native aspect of Pro Tools driving all this. Can be hundreds of streams of audio going in and out of interfaces, and then you might have a S6 console in front of you, which is a controller. There's no audio passing through it, but it's communicating with Pro Tools, giving you visual feedback, etc. So the combination of all these things, as as Martin is pointing out, is extremely complex, and you have a lot of different development paths that are typically parallel but have to intersect in many respects. And you've got different types of expertise. So you've got it's a little bit like front end, back end in web development. Like you have features in the software, you have the low level stuff that interacts with the hardware, you have firmware in the hardware, you have control protocols and personalities for the controller, and all of these things have to come together. I think the key is to really identify at the beginning of a project what is going to be we called it the long pole, like what is going to be the longest process. Interestingly, and it's kind of not really intuitive at first, is hardware is not necessarily the long pole. Making things sometimes is actually pretty trivial. Like trivial, I'm exaggerating. I was actually having dinner with the guy who still does hardware at Avid this week, and it's not easy, but the software can sometimes be infinitely more complex and take a lot more time. So in many cases, you have to kind of work with the product management, operations people, program managers, to really sync up the different teams and make sometimes tough decisions as to when that eventually goes to market. And you have to wait until it's ready, like especially in a company like Avid, where you're serving customers who do mission critical stuff. They're on your products 16 hours a day. They have deadlines. They have to deliver a TV show by this particular time. it can't not work. So it's really important to have the proper development cycles, then the proper alpha and beta cycles before you feel confident enough to get to market. And that's something that I think Avid does really well. There's a really good beta group, and we take a lot of our, we took, because I'm no longer there, a lot of our cues from those beta testers to tell us whether it's ready to go or not.
Good point. If I can add a word, probably like a product management is also like a very, like an important part of it, right? So actually driving projects that are actually cross-functional, right? I mean, between different teams, right?
It's huge. I mean, I want to say that it may be one of the most cross-functional roles in an organization, because you work with software engineering, hardware engineering, customer teams, marketing, sales. I mean, like, all of these things that have to eventually come together for a successful introduction to market. Sometimes it's a big launch. You go to NAM and you have this brand new interface and it's amazing and you do this big thing. And sometimes it's just the quarterly software release. It still needs to be coordinated. You have to give the teams enough advance information so that they're ready to go on the day of launch with all of the information they need. And it gets even more complicated sometimes, because if you're a company that just sells your stuff off of your website, that's fairly easy. You're the only one, you control everything. But in the audio business especially, you have to deal with distributors and resellers all around the world, because they're the ones that have stores and talk to customers every day. And you have to make sure they know about it, that they've invested money in go to market, that they have all the information they need ahead of time, that the video on the Sweetwater website has been shot 2 months before the product comes out. Like, all this stuff can get pretty gnarly.
Yep. You see, but I just wanted to highlight this program management because I can see that this is just like a common approach in not just in audio industry. I think he was the founder of Airbnb who said that they just restructured their product organization and actually did merge the product management with product marketing more like a business facing role, and actually put a very strong program management. So they say, hey, everything is because it's cross functional, complicated, with multi-dimensional. Of course, they don't have this another layer of complexity with hardware. But I can also see in many production companies I used to work with, some different industries as a product manager. I can see that this one that I also know is in Avid, right? Program management. So this cross-functional sort of coordination between teams is actually like a very popular in many organizations. Moreover, I'm not sure if the listeners know, there is also like I think it's also mainly known in the large like sort of industrial products. I don't know, military, aerospace, etc. There's a role of system engineers, right? So people who are actually creating architecture of the product from the very beginning. Like seeing all these interdependencies, technical interdependencies between different modules of the systems, right?
There is that in companies like Avid. It's called different things, but especially if you have
An architecture
product lines that span multiple industries, but there's like common technology platforms. There's a combination of software architects, cloud architects, typically work under like a CTO that looks after some of these common technology threads that can be used in different parts of the business.
Yep. Very much so. Yep. Guys, are there any other questions? I can see. Can I just display something? Yeah, me too. Guys, so yeah, we have a little bit, maybe time for one more question. In the meantime, let me just share that, come join our group. You can see link here. That will be fantastic if you can come. I mean, it came actually from this need, and I was just coming. Maybe just let me give a background story behind this, right? I mean, when I was trying to go back to making music and actually going to the product management, I say it was such a hard thing for me. I think the person I work with nowadays is actually on this webinar or listening to this webinar too, the founder of this company who makes this microphone, Tomasz. But I say, hey, since this is such a difficult path, maybe we can actually create community that help people. First of all, like a seasoned product managers, to 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 grow their careers, so they can one day take roles like Francois. But for those who are, I don't know, either engineers, project managers, but they want to take products roles, this could be like a like a nice starting point, right? So come, would be nice, guys, if you can join us there, right? It's just out of this sort of personal need and like a experience in striving. Oh, we have a
Hey, by the way, I want to thank you for putting this together, and also thank you for this initiative, because there's no school you go to, you know, to learn this stuff, specifically for audio. So learning from your peers and other folks, and or getting inspired for a new career is really awesome.
Thank you, Francois. Hey, can we get another one? Because we got another question. I'm not sure if we can prolong a little bit,
I'm fine. I'm fine.
How do you manage introducing new customers who have no experience and get them up to and up and running? Oh, that's a good one.
That's an excellent question, and it really depends on really depends on your product. And I want to say that in my role running Pro Tools and all of these products that basically started in the professional world, it is not the easiest thing. You're talking about extremely complex, very capable, professional grade products that, in many respects, a lot of hobbyists and newcomers and beginners use. So how do you do that when people actually people actually go to school to learn Pro Tools? Like, you have Pro Tools courses at Full Sail and in universities. um, and that was actually one of the big things that we talked about constantly, was how do you reduce time to fun, and how do you make it so that people boot up your application and get going and get creative really quickly. I mean, now you have a million tools. Like, one of the obvious ones is you have a million tutorials on YouTube. Now you can do your own as an organization, help people get started, or you can point them to, there's some amazing like audio engineering and music production influencers now that you can go to and learn their tips and tricks and stuff and get going. So that's one thing. That's content and just learning. Then in the applications themselves, people are not going to read a manual. That's not happening anymore. How do you make it easy at first boot of the application? Some applications do it way better than others, so I'm going to be agnostic here. But having demo sessions, having product tours that you have access to from the very beginning, having templates. What kind of music do you make? Oh, I'm an electronic music producer. Okay, well, just here's a template with a drum machine and some bass plugins, etc. There's some dummy MIDI notes in there. You can have the little pop-ups when you're moving your mouse around in the UI. What do these things do? So these things help, but then at the end of the day, I think, and that's an evolution that I think that has truly yet to happen, is making the DAW and the creation applications simpler to use, more purpose driven. There's definitely some progress being made there for simplifying, in a way that would allow you to start with, have an easy mode in Pro Tools where you start and it's all easy and you record easily. The instruments is easy to
Don't
set
start
up.
the subject. Don't start the subject, because we will need to discuss for another hour. For
Yes,
another
that's
hour.
true. But so there's a lot of aspects in the product and outside of the product that you need to consider.
Yeah. If I can add, because it had this experience uh, quite. I mean, it's already a few years ago, but I mean, recently I was like, learning how to mix ambisonics and Atmos music, and I say, hey, gee, if I couldn't have like somebody who's like a coach or somebody I can call, and even sort of the level of frustration was there. If I didn't have this colleague of mine helping me out and sometimes getting on the call, I would probably give up. So this the threshold was so such as in such a high level that I really I think neither trainings nor materials online couldn't do the justice. Just getting on the call with somebody and say, hey, how about this, how about sometimes there was no real answers. It's just question that you can actually reach out to somebody and unload certain. It was really like a it's just a completely different way of mix, etc. It's just everything just simply like take away, and you need to sort of like learn everything from scratch. I said, Jesus, so hard. And so
Yeah,
that's a
I'll give you a quick example, and maybe we can wrap with this. But even the most experienced guys in the business in audio engineering that need to learn something new and reinvent the thing completely. And my example, and I hope it wouldn't offend him if I said this, but my one of my favorite mixers in the world is Mick Gazowski.
Mhm.
Everything Mick mixes just sounds amazing on anything, right off the speakers of your phone, or an amazing sound system. Like he manages to make things sound great everywhere. And he
Mhm.
mixed the last Daft Punk album, and then I think it was last year, the Daft Punk, for the like 10th anniversary or whatever it was, asked him to mix it in Atmos. And it's one of the most amazing Atmos listening experiences there is. Like, it's an amazing album to listen to in Dolby Atmos. But he basically, if you look at the way he did it and some of the best practices from Dolby, he did it completely wrong. But it sounds amazing. So in many respects, you can invent your way. I mean, you need to have the basics, right, and the fundamentals. But when there's new things coming around, folks have a tendency to figure out and invent their way of making it great.
Amen. That's a good way to finish. Thank you very much, Francois. Guys, no, I mean, I see no more questions except some nice comments, appreciation, notes of appreciation. So maybe I will just wrap up. And Francois, first of all, thank you. It's a lot of great perspective, and thanks you that you also joined this small community. I hope that it's not the last time we talk here, and we'll be able to share more in the coming episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anybody who's still here, feel free to reach out on the group. I'm happy to chat there, and it was really fun to have this conversation. And yeah, I hope we do it again. So thanks, everybody.
Cheers.